Welcome to this episode of Altrincham Talks, the business edit. This time we're joined by Carl Newton, CEO of Myerson's. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you for taking time to join us. So let's talk a little bit about you before we talk a little bit about Myerson's. How did you get from a young, keen and ambitious lawyer to become the CEO of Myerson's?
Yeah, well, I went to university, the traditional route to become a solicitor, and I joined actually the largest firm in central Manchester to train. I realised a large law firm wasn't the place for me towards the end of my training, and just towards the end of the training, I found what was called Neil Myerson and Co. here in Altrincham. Met Neil Myerson, the founder. It was a much smaller firm, probably 30 people, and I thought, yeah, there's something here. I'd like to get involved here because I see great potential for the business. At that time, I'd only just qualified as a lawyer. I was a corporate and commercial lawyer. Neil had got a great practice acting for the local commercial clients in the town and its environs, and I learned a lot from Neil. So I suppose the early stage, for us with any lawyer career, is just learning to be able to do the job, to be able to service clients' needs. But I was quite fortunate. Neil made me a partner when I was at 28. I was only 3 years qualified, which was a bit unusual. It's a bit of a leap of faith in me, I think.
Yeah.
And by time so I joined in 95. By time we got to 2000, Neil just turned around one day and said, "You're going to be the next managing partner after me, and I'll train you for the next 5 years to take over the firm in 5 years' time." I said, "Okay, fine." I told the other partners that, and they said, "Yes, that sounds a good idea." So
I suppose not everybody, if you go into law, some people want to practice law.
yeah,
Whereas inevitably, the more you grow the business, the less time you've got to actually be a fee earner as opposed to actually running the business.
yeah, that's definitely true. I think many lawyers try and do both.
Yeah.
Perhaps badly. I became managing partner in 2005.
Yeah.
And I carried on full-time fee earning. You could do that at that stage because the business wasn't so large.
Yeah.
By time we got to 2015, 16, it was becoming increasingly difficult. We were sort of 80, 90 people by then, and it was getting trickier to do that. And also, there were some great new people who joined the business, many of them probably better lawyers than me. So I thought I saw an opportunity to really think about doing more on the business side and perhaps try and accelerate the growth a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I suppose the skill of running a business is very different to the skill of being a lawyer as well.
It is. When you're dealing with a legal matter, obviously detail really counts, and you have to be in amongst all the detail. You have to be very precise. And you also have to adopt your client's position. Even if you can't personally judge that. Well, in business, it's slightly different. You've got to accept that perfection doesn't exist, and you've got to allow other people to grow, and sometimes they don't necessarily make the same decision you would. So it is a very, very different skill, and I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, and I know Myerson's are very conscious of the people that they've got in the business.
Yes.
It's the very best for the people that you've got.
Yes.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about Myerson's and how you've grown the team that you've got, and a little bit about the younger people that you've got coming into the business now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate to have had, for many years, we just grew in the number of partners.
Yeah.
People, we never really matured as a business. The only person who retired was Neil Myerson,
Right.
and until people eventually started retiring in the early 2020s.
Yeah.
So I think continuity, not having a high staff turnover, particularly at the senior end, just really nobody leaving the firm, enabled us to just grow and grow, learn from our mistakes, because you do make mistakes along the way, and looking all the time for new talent, particularly a younger talent. I mean, my partners have a little joke in that we say we always try to employ people who are better than us.
Yes.
I think in some businesses, people might see that as a threat. We don't. We actually want people to be better than us. The training these days is better. The resources are better. I think the training we do within the firm is better. So we, in terms of our people dynamic, our core values as a business what we admire most in our best employees. So all our recruitment and appraisal is against our core values. We have an apprentice scheme. So we have school leavers coming at 18 to do a 6-year apprenticeship, which is a massive commitment to take on. So we started that 3 years ago. We've always taken trainee solicitors. Recently, it's been about 5 a year. So these are people who've finished university and professional qualification courses and then need to do a 2-year training contract to qualify as a solicitor.
Yeah.
And then many of those qualify and stay on with the firm, and some have become partners as well. So training is just a continuous ongoing thing. And to cap things off, as an expression about what Myerson's about, we were a partnership until last August. But then we took the massive leap of becoming Manchester's first employee-owned law firm. So the partners sold the business to an employee ownership trust,
right,
that owns all the shares on behalf of the employees of the business now. So we're 100% employee-owned.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah. And just talk a little bit about the apprenticeship program, because there are some obvious benefits to going through an apprenticeship program as opposed to going the traditional route, aren't there? Because you're actually in the business already rather than going through an academic route. So
that's
you
right.
have more experience than perhaps if you go through the traditional route of becoming a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got apprentices now in their 4th year. So we're, they know as much as people come out of the university stage, and they've grown within the business. Actually, they know a lot about the business itself, because in their first year, they don't actually do any legal work.
Right.
We get them to work in our business services departments. They man reception. They take telephone calls. They're out marketing. They become legal PAs for a while before doing that, all the time whilst going to university a day a week. I suppose a massive advantage to the apprentices is that they don't have to pay tuition fees.
Yeah.
They're earning, so they're not getting into debt. And so if they go that route, they'll qualify as a solicitor with hopefully with no educational debt at all.
Yeah.
And in a job, because of course, if you go to university and you do the various courses, you've still got the hard task of actually finding a training contract. So you could put all that graft in, get yourself into a significant amount of debt, and you still haven't necessarily got a job. So they're very, very much sought after, these apprenticeship.
And I should imagine, you won't know yet because you're only part way through it, but there'll be a higher sense of loyalty from those who've gone through that program. They'll feel more attached to Myerson's and your values and the business itself.
And they'll have had more time to experience all different areas of the business, because it's not an issue, but it's a thing you have to contend with as a young lawyer. You've got to decide which area to specialise in. Traditionally, in a 2-year training contract, if they've come out of university, they do 6 months in 6 month seats in 4 different areas. Well, we've got 12 departments. Now, if you're an apprentice with us, you'll be able to experience all 12 departments. So the choice that you have when you qualify is far more greater and far better informed as well. So that's and it's just not getting involved in the pure legal work side of things. It's meeting clients. It's getting involved in, say, Altrincham bids events, and which are training. We do encourage them to get out and about, and we don't just keep them in a dark room doing law, because being a lawyer in this modern age is about relationships and dealing with people. So they have to learn that as well.
Absolutely. I know you touched on the values of Myerson's earlier on. And it's something that some businesses only pay lip service, if any kind of service to at all. Sometimes they'll spend half an hour, write a few sort of words up on a wall and say, those are our values.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of setting out your culture and values? And you mentioned, obviously, you recruit on culture and values as well.
Yeah, and praise. And we also have progression strategies for both the fee earners and business services. We've got various levels you can progress through in the firm. And we have a skills matrix aligned to those core values of skills for people to attain at each level.
Yeah.
So, it's not a mystical thing progressing in our business.
Yeah.
There are skills to acquire. And some people are stronger in one area than another. You've got to expect that. And that's really where those core values come in. There are things like collaboration. Many law firms and lawyers are on their own. They have to go find their own work. They're like little silos all on their own. We want and expect everybody within our business to work together, to collaborate. We don't have personal billing targets and things of that nature.
Yeah.
We want the work to go to the right person, so it's done efficiently and well for the client.
Yeah.
And that's how we go about things. So that's just an example of one, collaboration.
Yeah.
We want people who are self-disciplined and motivated, people who just get on with things and do things without being told to do them.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of maintaining a sensible balance in their lives. Many of us choose to practice here in Altrincham. Have joined the firm over the years because in the city centre they offer good work but ludicrous hours. And why can't you do the good work and just do it in an ordinary, sensible way, like in a normal business?
Yeah.
So and allied to that is this sense of entrepreneurialism, which is really important in a business like Myerson that's rooted in a local community like Altrincham.
I want to go and work for Myerson now. They often say that businesses are like trees, they're either growing or dying. There's no standing still.
Yeah.
And businesses are built on people. So in a profession like law, you've got to be technically really competent at law. So how do you ensure that your team of fee earners stay up to date on everything? I know you got things like CPD and continual professional development. And then how do you make sure that people are also growing in terms of the other skills they need around business? You talked about entrepreneurial sort of views. How do you make sure people are growing in that sense and through the soft skills and leadership and management, things like that?
On the technical side, there's continuous professional development. We invest a fortune on the technical side, and we've got all the resources you'd see in any large firm. Fortunately, you'd have to go to a law library these days. That used to be a disadvantage being in Altrincham because the only law libraries were in Manchester, but everything's on the internet now.
Yes.
But beyond that, we have a programme. We're in a group called the UK 200, which is a group of accountants and solicitors across the country, and they have what's called a Pathways programme. And you sort of start that at a junior level and all the way up to partner. And the idea of that is to learn different soft skills that are going to be important during your career, not just with people from your own firm, but also with people who are at the same, in your sort of same peer group in other firms with whom you've got a relationship and alignment. So we do that. That's really important. Then we run our own ongoing programs in-house. And each year we sometimes have a different emphasis. We worked with Manchester Mind. We were doing all our managers were trained in sort of mindfulness and so forth. But we do an awful lot. We got quite a large training program, and what we do is also record things. So if we do things in house, like we're recording this today, we record them, put them on our intranet, so they're there for the future.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of you talk about growth. We're a business that can't stand still because we're sort of genetically coded to grow now. And we've done that by using a scheme called the Entrepreneur Operating Scheme, based on a book called Traction by Gino Whitman. And we've done that since 2014. And that's a system that looks to generate double-digit growth. And we've grown at 15.5% on average for the last 10 years, organically. We've never done an acquisition. And we use ROCS, which is a 90-day sprint system, effectively, from the Entrepreneur Operating System. So everybody in the business has their normal job to do, but each quarter they take 3 or 4 things out of the long list of 20 things they would like to do and look to achieve them, to give them some priority. And it's that incremental improvement in a business on a compound basis that generates growth, and that's what we do. And everyone just expects to do that every quarter. It's not an imposition, it's just
part of the way it is.
The way it is, the way we operate, yes.
And that's absolutely brilliant. So that's Traction by Gino Whitman. And the thing you mentioned about rocks is a really great video. It's a really old video now by Jim Rohn, who talks about the rocks concept. So he has a jar that's got rocks, pebbles, and
sand inputs.
And for anybody who's not seen that video, if you look that up, it's Jim Rohn, ROHN. And there's a great video on, and read the book as well. It's an amazing book. So talk a little bit about Myerson's then, about what you do now. You said you had 12 different departments. What services do you actually provide for through Altrincham and beyond?
So in Altrincham, for the local business community and beyond, very strong in corporate, commercial, employment, commercial property. We do a lot of property deals in the town. We act for and know a lot of the property owners and surveyors and so forth locally. That's important. On if they get into that, we try to keep people out of litigation. And occasionally, an example we talked about earlier, if you don't have a shareholders agreement, and they're more likely you're going to be in a dispute with your fellow shareholders. Unfortunately, we do have to deal with those. But when we do that work, we try to resolve disputes rather than make them worse. And then we have a whole host of private client services. So we do things you would expect: conveyancing, wills, trust, probate. But we have a large practice, one of the largest in the country, probably top 10 in the country, of probate litigation.
Right.
That's a specialist type of work. It's with growth of second families and complex family affairs. And it's one of those things that's sort of grown as a specialism. And we've been at the forefront of that in the North. And it often involves quite complex high court litigation. So we do that as well.
Yeah. So we were talking off air before, and I said that I was going to ask you this question. So if we had, for the business owners who were listening, if you had top 3 tips for the business owners who were listening from an officer's perspective of what you do, what would those top 3 tips be? You mentioned shareholder agreements.
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah, I mean, when you're going into business, you've got to have a clear plan. Both from a commercial perspective, but also a legal perspective as well. If you know what your rights, duties, and obligations are as shareholders, and you have a cohesive group of, like I had, partners to get us where we are today, is really, really important. And so, if you don't have that, there'll be miscommunication and things will arise. So that's really, really important. I think the other thing, though, is just to, as a business owner, do spend some time to work on your business, not in it all the time. I think you see with many small business owners, they spend so much time working in the business and looking to please clients. They don't take that step back to think about what they and indeed their employees or indeed shareholders, fellow partners want out of the business.
Yeah.
And they become almost blindsided to the reason why they're in business in the first place.
You mentioned something earlier on. So we always employ people who are better than us to do things. And I think the 2 biggest traps that I come across with business owners are, number 1, why should I get somebody else to do it when I can do it myself? Yeah. And number 2, nobody else can do it better than I can do it. And it's the 2 biggest mindset issues that I come across with smaller businesses who want to grow but get stuck at that one place. They just can't, break away from that. And it's so important to be able to step back.
Yes,
and get out of working in doing the business as usual stuff. Otherwise, you're never gonna progress and grow the business.
That's how you've got to let go of the vine in traction speak in ES speak. You've got, and we delegation is an art. Is it an art form? Is it a science?
It's a skill.
It's a skill.
Learn,
it is, and we from an early stage, the pathways. We talk about when you become a senior associate. You might have a couple of other solicitors working with you at the beginning of your week, making sure that you've delegated work for them to do at the right level is really, really important. And but going back to the business, working on it and actually some people have this thing of thinking, well, work means client work and the rest of the stuff I have to do when I'm really tired late in the evening. Actually, if you're thinking about your vision for the future and what you want out of your business, I actually work probably better in the morning and giving yourself half a day off. Well, when I say off, you're not, because you're working on the business to do some decent planning, and then to have a 1, 3, 5 year plan at very least. I think as you develop the business, you need a 10-year plan actually. Yeah. And even at Myerson, we've delivered our 10-year plan. We're now thinking about, well, what's next 3, 5, 10-year plan in the future, and what will the business look like in the future, and what are the issues that are going to arise, and the things that we're going to have to overcome to deliver our vision for the future. So it is a constantly changing thing. I'm not sure many businesses just sort of plateau off and they either wither on the vine then or cease to be successful. So I think you've got to be constantly working on things.
I think what we see for those business owners who are ambitious, what would tend to happen is they have a little bit of a spurt and a little bit of rapid growth, but then it plateaus.
Yeah.
And they've got to be really careful that that plateau doesn't turn into a decline. They've got to go again, basically. Like cement will go again. All of our business owners do a long-term plan, sort of 3 to 5 years with some milestones on it. They all do a 12 to 18-month plan with a little bit more detail. Then everybody does a 90-day plan. Yeah, they've got, the key 3 or 4 things that have got to get done on the business.
Yeah.
All planned out week by week. So for those smaller businesses who are time poor because they are still working in the business quite a lot, it gives them the time to plan in and say, right, all I need to do is do that week, that week, and that week, and we know we'll get it done.
Yeah.
So planning is so crucial to every business, no matter what size you are, I think, and especially as you start to grow.
Yeah.
You've got to be even more conscious of making sure that the goals are set out and that everybody in the business also understands what the goals are.
Yeah. Taking time to speak to, we update our staff twice a year. We do a big presentation and answer field questions, but then I go to various departmental meetings and updating people and constantly. I think listening to people is a key skill.
Yeah,
there's so many business owners who think it's all about charging to the front and telling everybody out. If the staff don't respect you and you don't listen to them, because most of you, in my experience, a lot of the good ideas, the best ideas, come from people who are on the front line doing things themselves. And so to encourage that and to listen to them, listen to your customers as well, because it's about putting the two together, isn't it?
Yeah.
So both have a great experience. If they have a great experience, the business has value.
Yeah, and that's absolutely one of the great traits of leadership is being able to listen to people, because you'll learn, if you've got 100 people working in the business and you're just one person, I think it'd be very difficult to believe that somewhere in that 100 people there's great ideas that are better than any ideas that you've got. So there's a lot of research being done around what's important to people as well, in terms of why people stay with businesses.
Yeah.
And although salary is in there, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, survival is right at the bottom, and salary pays for a roof over your head and food and the lifestyle you want. But then after that, it's about feeling like you belong somewhere, feeling like your voice is being heard, seeing how you fit into the bigger picture and how your job contributes to the success of the company. So I think doing what you do is absolutely...
Well, now as an employee-owned business, when we're at the board making decisions, we basically have to address ourselves to what is in the best interest of the employees as a whole. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And to achieve that, we've always done an employment engagement survey each year. And that's really, really held on an anonymous basis. So, and people provide all sorts of comments and things. And we've made so many changes on reviewing that. But after just becoming employee owned, the further thing we've done is we've now got an employee council.
Right.
So what we do is we have a representative from each stakeholder group in the business. So the apprentices have one, the trainees have one, and they're going to meet they are meeting on a quarterly basis to provide feedback to our people director and one of our trustees as well.
Great. That sounds fabulous. I really do want to go work for you now. You mentioned the bid earlier on, Altrincham bid, actually, or a force in Altrincham.
Yeah.
How important is it for you to be a bid member, and what do you think the bid has brought to the town?
Sure. When we moved offices a few years ago, our number one criteria was to be within walking distance of set, which we measured it from an M&S actually, right, which is right in the heart of Altrincham. First of all, we know a lot of people in Altrincham, lots of clients, lots of people who supported us over the years during our growth, and we've hopefully supported them during theirs. It's a wonderful place to be. I mean, you've got a choice these days. I mean, with some of us, we do work from home some of the time, and we ask people to come to the office at least 3 days a week. But a lot of our staff come 4 days a week because one of the big draws is Altrincham itself, a place to go out and enjoy at lunchtime and so forth, a place to take clients in terms of entertaining. There's so many good offerings in terms of restaurants, coffee shops, and just general shopping within the town.
Yeah,
it's a nice place to work.
Yeah,
and if we were 3-4 miles away, we're out on a trading estate with none of that offering, actually that will have a massive impact on our day.
Yeah.
And it's easy for people to pop in and visitors and so forth. So we're so grateful for everything Altrincham BID does. We have some meetings at our offices, and we try to participate in all the events and meetings going across the town, because there's huge amounts of synergies that can be generated from people working together.
Yeah,
for the better of the town and this business community here.
Yeah, definitely. And I see your name popping up all over the place as well. Obviously, your main sponsors for the Food and Drink Festival that's coming up, that's starting shortly as well. So we look forward to seeing more of you there.
Yes.
So talking about Myerson's then, what's next? So you talked about your plans for the future. What's next for Myerson's?
Well, it's to carry on growing, which inevitably means becoming a larger. We employ 160 people now. I would have thought within a few years we'll be employing over 200 people in the town, which I think helps bring more business into the town, doesn't it? And so forth. And it's about creating greater security for the people who work within the business.
Yeah.
Even though we're employee, we are about generation of profit for our employees. Our plan will be to increase what we earn in real terms right across the business without necessarily working any more hours in the week. That's the. But I think this year we'll be at 20 million revenue. Our 5-year plan, will be to grow the business about 30 million as a business, which is that would place us as a large mid-tier firm in the Northwest, and we already project beyond Altrincham, so we bringing new clients and stuff into this area that perhaps might otherwise go to Manchester city centre, and so be more of that. Yeah. I think we might be broadening some of the breadth of services. So I've talked about 12 departments. Yeah. We also have 12 sectors. So hospitality and leisure is one of those that aligns very nicely with the sponsorship we're doing for the Taste of Altrincham with BID. So we're acting for quite a lot of people in that sector within the town and so forth. So we'd to grow some of those sectors where it's not just a matter of a specialist area of law; it's applying it to a specialist sector. We even act for lots of other law firms. We've just acted for 2 recently doing employee ownership. So employee ownership as a concept is growing in the economy now. Yeah, there were about 500 new employee-owned businesses last year. I've challenged my my corporate department to be doing 1 employee ownership conversion a week.
Wow.
This year, and I'm not quite achieve that, but to get somewhere close to it, and so just grow that business.
So what's that kind of look did they have on the face when you said that? Was it a look of horror or a look of excitement?
They just laughed. They just know it's me as usual. Just that is in reality is the potential.
Yeah,
because I think there's a lot of good businesses in Altrincham who have a great culture and have a great fit and towards that kind of thing. And you'll see even within the town more employee ownership. Another firm of Price Later Gorn, a month afterwards, they became employee owned as well. Right. So we're now, it's in the whole of Greater Manchester. Only Altrincham has got 2 employee owned law firms.
Set the standard.
Yeah, so there's no reason why Altrincham and we can't be at the forefront of these things.
Good. Look, we're almost out of time, but there's just one final question for you, which is quite a simple one. If you could go back in time, what advice would you offer to your younger self?
I think probably earlier on, I prided myself in making very quick decisions, which is really important. You should never procrastinate on decisions. And I would just be blasting through things. I'd be doing fee earning. I would be trying to run the business. And I think sometimes, I think people need you to be decisive. But there's no reason why you just can't take a step back sometimes, maybe sleep on something, never react in anger or anything like that. You need to remain calm. I think I've always been reasonably calm, but I think as I've grown older, I've been slightly more reflective. And what I also do is, at first, you're a leader strutting and stuff, trying to find your way, and you like to be seen to making decisions. These days, I when people come to me with things, I will say, okay, and they ask me to make the decision. I say, well, what's your recommendation? And I think that's quite empowering. And and sometimes even their recommendation isn't quite what you would do, if you can live with it, go with it. And so I think just taking that little step back and making sure you empower people. Think of them I might have used to have done earlier. Yeah.
I think for me, there's one great book out there that helps people to do that, or The 1 Minute Manager Makes the Monkey. I don't know. It's one of the 1 Minute Manager series. Absolutely fantastic book for people who are just starting out in management as well, I think, just to allow people to make their own decisions and move forwards themselves. Rather than taking all the monkeys on as a business.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Carl, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and see us. I think it's been absolutely fascinating, and I'm looking forward to hearing much more about Myerson's in the future.
Okay. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.